Well, I think first and foremost is that it was unfortunate that the Olympics had to be pushed for the next 1 year. And again, this brings a lot of challenges for the athletes because we have those athletes who are a little bit older that they were thinking that that was going to be their last race, and therefore it was pushed. So it has got a lot of challenges. However, the advantage is we have got the young athletes that would have not qualified last year to run for the Olympics, but then they have a chance this year. As a country, I know very well that for many years that we have run in Asia, we have always performed, and I expect the Tokyo Games this year maybe to better the Rio Games, where they had around I think 7 gold medals. So I know there will be definitely a very good performance. Again, of course, our athletes still have the challenges of training. They cannot also be able to compete so many races the way it is supposed to be, because the more you compete, the more you are being ready for the big event. So, and we know that for many diamond leagues, still has been cancelled. Have been cancelled. Some are going to perform, but they are not going to invite many athletes as it has been. So that is where the challenge is. But otherwise, in terms of performance, definitely we will perform. Well, I think most important thing is the training, the discipline. I would wish to see, more of our athletes, especially those who are going to represent Kenya, thinking more about the country. Because again, most of the time you would find that, agents would come in, coaches would come in and want to interfere with whatever plan that is there, especially for the national coaches, because the team, people need to understand one thing. Running for the Olympics is for the country. It's hardly for you, and that's why we don't have any prize money when you win the Olympics. It's only the sponsorship that you get. So put your country first, so that as you prepare, you know that I want to see many national anthem being played on the international stage, like the Olympics. So my advice to our Kenyan athletes is to be able to concentrate, make sure that they are ready, come August, September, for them to be able to perform at the optimum level.
In that bit, my last.
Well, I know there's a lot of chances. Actually, I was discussing today, with a number of guys, and they were like, Wilfred, what's going on in 800 meters? We don't have that consistent athlete that is able to perform it, because I think the history of 800 meters in this country has been there's always an athlete that comes in, takes over from another one. The way I took over from the likes of Billy Congela and William Tanui, for those who are running then, and then Rudisha came and took over from me. But however, for 800 meters, we have Manangoi, we have Emmanuel, we have a number of good athletes that if they prepare very well, they have a chance for them to be able to bring glory and at least retain, what Rudisha was able to brought for us in 2016.
Let's do your story.
Well, I think for me, I've always say I'm a product of a school teacher. It's a primary school teacher that identified my talent, and I think, since he called me to the staff room and say, Wilfred, I think you can be able to run. I happen to come from family of runners. Henry Rono is my first uncle. Wilson Kiter, who was record holder until Rudisha won. Uh, Broke his world record, that is running for Denmark, is my first cousin. So the fact that I was coming from the family of runners, it was easy for me to identify uh, with with running and maybe able to win. Maybe the only thing that I didn't know is to what level that I was going to play. But I think as soon as I ran in 2001 when I was still very young and win silver medal, I knew very well that there's a high chance for me to be able to win Olympics. However, I didn't win in 2004 when I was a favorite, but I was able to win in 2008 when it was least expected.
So, which some numbers?
Well, I come from Kabirir Sang, which is in Nandi County. It happened to have so many names, from the father of athletics, Kipchoge Keino, Ben Koko, Henry Rona, as I said, Osea Koko, all these guys, Janet Chepkoskei, we all come from the same vicinity. So apart from being a product of a school teacher, I'm more product of an environment, because, it was easy for me to run 800 meters because there was Sami Koskei that I used to see him running. There was Wilson Kipketer that I used to see him running. So it became far much easier for me. And we are talking about, 30 years from now back, I think it was, of course, again, I ran early 90s. That is, it was in primary school. Didn't know, so I was not the best actually during that period. But one thing I can say is that despite the fact that I was not the best during the primary school, but when it came to secondary school, I was able to run very well and being able to represent the country in the junior championships back in 1998.
So your first time to carry Kenyan flag was 1998?
Yes, 1998 junior championships in France where I got silver medal. Actually, we had 1-2 for Kenya in 800 meters.
Gold medal?
Well, I would say this, that my journey was more of climbing the stairs. Because if I remember, from 1998, when I represented the country in senior championships in Edmonton, Canada, 201, won silver bronze medal in 03 indoors, finished fifth in Olympics, won gold in 2006, indoor championships, finished, I think, fourth in Osaka 07, and being able to win the Olympics. So for me, it was more of a journey of taking stairs. It was never a fluke, because I've seen again, many Kenyan athletes who have run and maybe win just that quickly. It becomes very hard to maintain. If you look at the likes of Paul Tergat, Eliud Kipchoge, Catherine Dereba, they were able to progress. By the time that they were performing at their best, at least they had a lot of consistency during the time of running. And that's exactly what happened with my life.
What can you say is your highest moment when you are in the field and maybe your lowest moment?
Well, I think my highest moment was being the captain of the Kenyan Olympic team in 2008. That was the best. My winning gold was actually nothing to me during that period, because I felt that, because if I remember very well, during the interview after I won, the big question that was coming from the media was, how were you able to galvanize the athletes and being able to perform after coming out of post-election violence that we know it brought this country to its knees. So, but being able to have our Kenyan athletes to perform very well, to win gold medals, especially the fact that, we got gold medals from different athletes coming from different tribes in this country, but the whole country was celebrating. And that's why I say the highest moment for me was the Olympics and being a team captain. The lowest, of course, is still the same year when I was able to run the poorest time way before I came for the trials here in Kenya, that I ran not even the time that I ran as a junior. It was disappointing. I felt that maybe probably my time was up.
What time was it?
149. You can imagine running 149 as a senior is just like almost, I don't know, I can't even describe. And therefore, when I came back, the country, my coach still followed me. I said, look, I'm done with athletics. And he said, no, take a break, be with family, just start training slowly. Fortunately, there was 2 months before the Olympics, no, before the trials. So I was able to get back myself and ran the trials, won the trials. And as soon as I won the trials here in Kenya, I knew that I was going to win the Olympics.
So, but you decided to hang out when people needed you more. Why?
Well, because I think that is a good question, because many people thought that it was time for Bungei to make money, because when you win Olympics, you get very good contracts, you get very good appearance fee. Uh, but for me, money was not a motivation. For me, it had nothing to do with very good contracts and all that. My achievement, and after many years of running, I felt that it was time for me to hang up the shoe and being able to focus on other things. And at the end of the day, I'm happy that I decided to hang up the shoes at the right time.
So, since your retirement, what have you been doing? Maybe are you training some of the young athletes to take after you? Are you doing business? What are you doing to the community and personally?
Well, unfortunately for me, I don't play major role in terms of sports, and especially when it comes to daily running of sports. I don't own a training camp. I don't do coaching. But I do a lot of motivational speaking for our athletes, and also the connection between athletes and the agents, because I have got so many friends in Europe that I'm able to connect these athletes. That is what I do, and that is voluntary. It's not for payment, because I feel that the only way I can give back to the society is to be able to connect these athletes, because we have got thousands of athletes who doesn't have agents here in Kenya, and if I can be able to connect one or two to an agent, it will be the best thing that I can be able to do. But of course, I'm a businessman. I've wear many hats, from being an editor to being a contractor, to being a motivational speaker, being a farmer. I've done so many things, but at the moment I'm working as a contractor.
So, how many athletes can you brag in today and say that I have got this number of athletes who maybe have linked them to the agents maybe and they are doing well?
Well, I think for me, I come from a community that we don't count our blessings and what you do for people. Unfortunately, I'll not give you that number because what I do, what I always say is that, what I have in this hand, this other hand should not know. So I cannot brag and say, that I've done APCD. But the athletes that have, and even students that have connected to universities, top universities in the US and Europe, yeah, I have a big number, and I let them be the ones who would say, hey, I was helped by Wilfred Bungei, but not me going around and saying I did ABCD.
And of course, your story is so motivating and also maybe challenging to this young generation of athletes in terms of addiction to alcohol and how you recovered. Maybe you take us through how was it, for how long were you down on it, and maybe how did you get over it?
Well, I think that is one question that many people ask themselves. And I remember actually, when I came out and mentioned about my issue that I had, many people were like, Wilfred, why are you coming out in public? You're tarnishing your name. I say it was already tarnished, okay? But I have back Wilfred Bungei. That is why I need to come out and share my story so that I can help those who are down. Because I can tell you that in this country, whether they are sports people, artists who have been, anchors, name it, anyone, they have fallen into a victim of being alcoholics, drug addicts, sex addicts, name it, anything. Okay? It's very bad. But unless, the so-called celebrities can be able to come out and say that this was my story, it was so bad, but here I am, I have made it, you can be able to inspire others. But otherwise, I can tell you that, the things that I have seen myself, if you hide in the cocoon of, I don't want people to know, the chances of you relapsing is very high. That is why for me, I needed to come out so that it becomes a reminder every single day that I am nothing but an alcoholic. That is why I remain throughout my life, I remain an alcoholic, and that's why many forums that I've gone, I've said if God gives me the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I can never go back to that because I've learned who I am.
How was it like?
Well, it was a roller coaster. Anyone who knows about alcoholics, anyone who has seen alcoholics, is not very nice scene to see. All the things that happens to alcoholics, I went through. It was a year and a half, but I can tell you it was a roller coaster that I don't even
Which
remember.
year was that?
2010, 2011, 2012. By September 21st of 2012, I checked into treatment for 6 weeks at Nairobi Place in Karen, and I came out clean, and cannot regret, however expensive it was, but I cannot regret the decision I made on that day.
So since 2016, you never touched?
2012,
Since 2012.
21st September 2012. So I've got 8 years of soberness, completely sober. I cannot touch meat that has got alcohol. I cannot use perfume that has got alcohol as much as most of the perfumes have alcohol. So anything that deals with alcohol, I cannot touch as Wilfred Bungei. That is how serious this thing is and how serious I've took it and why I'm able to go to a national TV and say that, I'm Wilfred Bungei, I'm an alcoholic, and therefore I can never touch alcohol. Just like somebody who is diabetic, somebody who is diabetic, they will be told, don't touch sugar. Okay, you touch sugar, you are done. So that is basically what happened with me. If I know very well that if today I get even just a sip of vodka, wine, beer, whatever, it will not be a sip, but it is going to be a lot. We alcoholics, we say 1,000 is not enough. One is too many. 1,000 is not enough. So even a glass of wine is a lot for us alcoholics. So you cannot lie to me and say, hey, it's only a glass. I go to, as soon as I finish treatment center, I open an hotel, I open a bar, and people thought that it was a recipe for relapse. But for me, I know that I cannot go back there, and that's why I said I meet many people. They are like, Wilfred, can we have one drink? And I always tell guys, my friend, I'm an alcoholic. I cannot touch drinks. So that is how people need to take seriously anyway this thing, because again, as sportsmen and women, I've seen many lives have been ruined. You get guys who their lives are upside down. despite the fact that they made millions of money, they are so much famous, but they end up nothing because they cannot accept who they are and they cannot accept the problems that they have had.
How bad was alcohol how bad was alcohol damage to your life?
Well, I think for me, fortunately, I cannot say that I lost anything in terms of finances and anything. But of course, it was traumatizing for the children and for the family. They didn't like what was happening. It actually affected them at that time. But fortunately, especially for the children, they were still very young. But the one thing that they have been proud of is to be able to see me right now being sober, and they know very well that my dad can never touch alcohol. Of course, when it comes to my wife, definitely, there is always a fear that he may go back and have the same experience that was there, which was very bad. And I have always assured that I can never go back there.
So on that note, what could be that advice you could give to how athletes can manage both fame and also maybe they call themselves like they are celebrities. How can they manage both fame, good performance, and also maybe still maintain good discipline without maybe engaging in drugs and other addiction?
Humility. Humility is the best thing that you can have in this world. If you are able to be humble, that will remind you that you are nothing but Wilfred Bungei. For me, I relate so much. I like being called my middle name, which is, it grounds me. I have got friends who will call me Game Boy, and always it reminds me that I'm nothing but just still the same person that came from Sang village. So the challenge is for the athletes to be able to be humble. And unfortunately, again, this comes especially for those athletes who make money so quickly. They end up forgetting where they have come from. For me, my journey, as I told you earlier, that it was more of stairs, it was always a reminder that where I came from, if I'm not careful, I'll go back there. So it humbles me to always know that nothing, because had I continued, for example, drinking, I would definitely go back. It could have been the stories of from rags to riches to rags. So, but when you are humble, you will always be careful, you'll always try to help others, you'll always listen, even to the stupidest questions in the village. You will even listen to any advice. For me, I have always said there is no advice that you can get, the best advice that you can get, especially from young people. Maybe a child, comes and asks you some questions that you think they are small questions, but those questions are very important, and it always reminds me and it makes me humble to be able to listen to everyone.
And of course, speaking on that note, Mr. Bungei, we have a real life example of current or reigning superstars in our country who are almost in the same capacity that you are when you are at your lowest in addiction. But maybe to them it could be a combination of addiction to alcohol, to other issues. They have got so many scandals locally. How can they get out of it?
Accepting what the problems are. Unfortunately for us, many of us, we don't accept the reality. We don't accept the things that has happened. You don't accept that you have a problem. You don't accept that you're drinking. You don't accept that you have become whatever addiction that comes your way. You don't accept that you have doped, because if you see many athletes, for example, what I have looked in the past is many people who have been found to have doped, for example. They end up becoming frustration. They end up saying that I didn't do this. They think that the solution is to drink, but that is not. If you have been found, whether it was true or not true, the best thing you can do, accept it, move on. If you are able to come back and run and prove that those were just allegations, well and good. So throughout the society, we don't accept the things that happens to us. We always want to think that, it could only happen to others. Like, for example, when I was drinking and all that, I never imagined that, I would become a full-blown alcoholic. I knew that, yeah, I was this guy that I can be in charge. But I realized that I was nothing but also a weaker person.
Now, talk about like you've taken us through your story. How you at a point you used to be, and I know that you still do some commentary come analysis for an international media station. How did you find yourself there, and maybe do you think of maybe going further in that career?
Well, I think I've done commentating from the time that I retired, if I remember very well, because I think I was working for SuperSport at certain time. I've worked with local media stations. I've worked with BBC. I've worked with many media stations around the world. Uh, but I would say that I will not take it as a job. For me, I like what I'm doing. I like my freedom. I like all that. But I don't mind, getting up an opportunity like today, getting an opportunity to be able to do real commentary, whether it is in championships or anything. I don't mind to do that. So that is how I want to take this. Yeah.
Maybe in your family, do you have anybody who has taken after you in terms of being a professional athlete?
Absolutely. My brother Samson Bungei, who is following me, he's a marathoner at the moment. He's a 208 guy. He won Cologne some time back. So for me, I'm one person that, I have my son again. He runs very well. At the moment, he was running in Turi, but at the moment, he's in Crawford School. And he's doing very well in athletics, actually. Yeah, so still in the family, I still believe that we will have many kids who are going to run. We will have other relatives that are going to run because it is our job and it's easier for us to do it. Yep.
Lastly, Bungei, talk to that upcoming young athlete somewhere in the village, maybe even the parents who doesn't know the importance of running, especially running nowadays and running your time. Nowadays, it is paying unlike your time. Everything is now commercialized. Talk to that athlete.
Well, I think for the upcoming athletes, what is very important, and especially at this age and era, what is important is to be patient. Unfortunately, many Kenyan athletes that we have at the moment, they want to achieve so much within a very short time. And I would say that I will always advise that the journey to success is not a quick fix. It's not about starting immediately and then you expect to have big results tomorrow. Always accept that you can be able to start from as a junior. Give yourself time of even 15 years for you to be able to be at the peak, because otherwise, if you think of running very quickly and then you want to make a lot of money, it's not going to help and you're not going to achieve that. Number two, and something very important, money should never be a motivation for any parent to say that I want my child to run for him or her to make money, but just say that I want my child to be able to be a successful Olympic champion, a world champion, or whatever, and money will always follow that. So for the young guys who are in the village out there, I would always say this: train hard, think about not shortcuts, think about never doing doping, think about never being lied to that the rest was have been doping, because that is the bigger lie that happens for those who dope. They are being lied to that so and so was using this. So anyone that wants to be a champion, always remember this: stairs is the best way